Chuck, your video is a little weird.
Good.
Okay. All right. Welcome everybody to our school board meeting. And I am going to kick it off with calling the meeting to order, and we will stand for the pledge. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of
of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice
for all. Thank you. We're getting better at that.
This will be our last Zoom meeting. Won't we be in person next time?
We certainly hope so.
Okay.
All right. With that, Travis, do we have any public comments? I don't think we have a Travis. There he is. Travis, would we happen to have any public comments?
No public comments.
Thank you. All right, moving on. We have a consent agenda. I would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Mike?
Support.
Jessica? Any comments or questions? Hearing none, let's see. Joanne, where's Joanne? Can you do roll call, please?
Sure. Mike,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Jack.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Thank you. All right. So I am going to turn this over to Mr. Meinke for a superintendent report.
Thank you very much. It's been a lot of activity since our last board meeting. As you know, our students came back to school last week, and they started in on exam week for our secondary students, and our elementary students, of course, came back to the classrooms that they had been in prior to the freeze or the shutdown. This week marked the new start of the new semester. So on Monday, our students were in new modalities in some cases, if their parents chose that for them. The majority of our kids were back in the modalities that they were in the first semester, but the ones that switched, they made the switch this week on Monday. For our high school students and our middle school students, certainly they saw many changes as their classes changed, as they normally do every year. And so it was really, really nice to see the kids back in school. Our teachers did a really nice job getting back into the swing of things and making sure the kids had a really positive start. Our safety protocols, as they have been for the first semester, have been going very well since we resumed last week. And all in all, there seems to be a really positive vibe amongst people. I do think that there is a constant sense of anxiety with the pandemic, and people that are concerned just about the different pieces that are in play every day in their jobs. I do think that many of our kids were very excited to be back, especially as I got to visit some of our elementary classrooms. Those kids were very excited to be back. So all in all, lots of positivity around the kids coming back to school certainly from the student perspective, and I'll certainly let Brendan talk more about that. I do want to also bring you up to speed. We had subcommittee reports or subcommittees that met this week, and so I'll let the different chairs speak about those. But I did want to share just a little bit of information. I sent out some information to those people who are on the policy committee. And as you know, we're moving towards implementing a new set of policies through TRUN. And I just happened to pull up a random policy. This one happens to be on service animals. But it gives you a little bit of a feel for how the policies are written. They're a little bit more succinct. I think they're a little bit more to the point. Troon is the largest educational law firm in the state of Michigan. And because they're a Michigan-based company, one of the things that I think is going to be a great benefit to us is they're going to be constantly updating and analyzing the policies and laws as they affect us here locally. This gives you just kind of an idea of the look and feel of the policies. The next month and a half is going to be a very busy time for policy as we're looking at implementing a new policy manual. So every board member will have access to a board, one of the folders in your board folder to be able to access all of the draft policies. And then starting in the 18th of February, we'll begin our first implementation meeting with Troon. And what happens is there are going to be 2 3-hour meetings. The first meeting is going to take us through 3 of the series. The second meeting will take us through the other 2. And there will be between 6 and 8 Troon attorneys who specialize in each area of the law speaking to each section. So for example, when we're talking about this policy as it relates to service animals, we're going to get an attorney that deals with Title IX, service animals, that type of law. And when we're talking about financial policies, we're going to be talking with a totally different attorney, or maybe someone that deals, when we're talking about special education, somebody that's a different area of law. So I'm excited for those. I think it's going to be a very beneficial process for us to go through. What I've asked the members of the policy committee to do is to start going in there and reviewing them and taking a look. I am going to share another document that will be in the folder, and this particular document is called the checklist. And so the nice thing about it is it starts at the very first policy in the 1000 series, and it goes through and explains some of the highlights of that policy. And so it serves as it's a long document, it's 14 pages long, but it does go through and kind of give you the cliff notes of each one. And then you can go to that actual policy number in the folder and then look through it. So I would encourage any of you that are interested to go in and weigh in on those. The process is going to go like this. The policy committee is going to look at these policies over the next month and a half. We're going to have those implementation meetings on February 18th and 19th, and then the policy committee will decide where they're going to go next. More than likely, at some point over the next few months, the whole board will have to will have to confirm or approve a resolution to shift to the new policy manual. So it will be replacing our current policies with the new policies, and that will happen over the course of a couple board meetings. Just wanting to try and keep you up to speed. You have access to all of these documents in your board folder, and you can pull them up and start to look at them, or maybe look at the policies that are of particular interest to you. So wanted to bring that up because that's obviously a big task that the board has in front of it over the next month and a half, 2 months. And certainly our staff is going to be looking at them as well and being prepared to, in those implementation meetings, make suggestions as appropriate. So wanted to make sure I brought you up to speed on that. The start back to school has gone very well. I also will let you know that we've been working very diligently on the vaccination process for our staff. We had a very successful vaccination drive at Flushing High School last Saturday. About 31 of our staff members who met the criteria set forth by the health department were able to get as some of the first people through the line. I met with the health department today, and over the course of the next couple of weeks, they're looking to plan more vaccination programs. I will say that the vaccine is in limited supply at this time, but we do have people who are individually able to secure appointments here and there. And so we're continuing to advocate and try and get as many of our people that would like the vaccine vaccinated. And so that process continues. And so that has consumed a lot of our time. But I will say we were, for every slot we were given at the vaccination schedule, which was, a clinic, which was very well organized by the health department, every single one of our staff members that had a slot showed up and did take the vaccination. So that's great. And it was done 100% attendance rate on our staff's part. So that was very, very positive. So lots of things coming up over the course of the next couple months, as we're already starting to prepare for what next year looks like. And there certainly is going to need to be a discussion as early as our next board meeting about what the summer might look like for certain groups of our students. And that's something that I'll be bringing for your consideration to talk through at our next meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Any questions for Ben?
I have one. The 100% rate for the COVID shots, Ben, what do you mean? Is that the people that signed up, we had 100% show ups? I understand that about 30 or 40% of people were teachers were a little leery of it last month when we talked about it, or 2 weeks ago, I'm sorry.
Sure. As I said before at the last meeting, not every one of our staff members wants to take the vaccine. And that is totally fine. We've taken the approach that we're very neutral on that. But for the people who requested it, we were able to get 31 seats. Of the 31 seats that we scheduled for our staff, all 31 of them showed up at their time. So we had 100% of the people who scheduled to go. So we don't have all of the people yet vaccinated who want to be vaccinated. And certainly not everybody on our staff will be vaccinated. So just to clarify that.
No, that's great. I just wanted to make sure when you said 100%, I wanted to make sure that myself and hopefully the rest of the board understood that whoever showed up, you had 100% attendance rate. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that.
And Ben, I want to thank you. I know it's a yeoman's job to get anybody a vaccine right now. So 31 is remarkable.
Mhm.
And we appreciate your efforts to coordinate for the staff, and I'm sure they do as well.
My pleasure. Thank you.
One
right.
other follow-up question, Carrie. One other follow-up question, Carrie. That was the people that went back to school, right? We prioritized those. So are those the 31 people that got them?
Yes. So any of the people who were vaccinated, the first priority and criteria that the health department laid out was that they needed to work directly face-to-face with children every day, and that they also needed to be over the age of 50. And so obviously that's that age range. We started with the people who were most senior on our staff. And then they also had to meet the second criteria, and that is working with children face-to-face every day.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Mhm.
All right. I am told that Brendan is unable to join us this evening. So we are going to move on to, let's see. There are informational items just for your information on the agenda. Board subcommittee reports. Brian, are you all set?
Yep, Ben, could you put that on share, that policy notes?
You want the checklist?
No, my report, just my report.
Oh, your report. Okay, I'll have to give me a second. I'll have to pull that up.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
If I knew how to do that, I'd do it myself. I found the share button.
Okay, I do believe that I will have it here. Just one moment. All right, I'll be able to share this in just a second. Okay.
All right, thank you, Ben. So we met yesterday, Tuesday, January 26th, and we went from 0600 to 0704. You see the list of people that attended, and it's pretty much as Ben had explained just a minute ago about the rollout. So the overview of the we had a discussion overview of the plan, the process, and the timeline to transition the rollout from current Neola policy to the Truant policy. And with this, we talked about the checklist. We just talked about that again. We talked about the policies that can be all found on the board docs, and I highly recommend that everybody has an opportunity to read those before the next board meeting. And then we as a committee made a recommendation to do an implementation meeting with the attorneys on February 18th and 19th in just a few weeks. And that basically the preparation was to read and review those same items. There's a lot of information there, a lot of policy. And I, like Ben had said earlier in the meeting, it might be too much to get get through all the policies, but we had one board member say that she could actually do it. And I'm sure if I'm sure we put some energy into it, we could all do it. But anyway, it'd be nice to have everybody prepared for the next board meeting and then the implementation meetings that follow up. And the meeting was closed at 7:04, and I appreciate it. Any questions? All right.
Thanks, Brian.
Gary.
Go ahead. Did someone have a question? No?
I said thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, academic achievement met right after policy meeting. Rod and Ben shared a great deal of information, went over the MTSS newsletters that were created by Kevin Claren, which are really quite amazing. And he shared the different areas of focus that are contained in the newsletters, including an increase in communications about MTSS. And correct me if I'm wrong, Rod or Ben, but it's now known as my MTSS, Michigan MTSS.
Correct.
So there's some staff celebrations highlighting their contributions to the district and our students. Rod explained the students of concern, where they're identifying students with academic concerns through means like STARS, DIBELS, Ames Web, and identifying students with behavioral concerns through attendance and office referrals, et cetera. Rod also shared the information about the trauma-informed care updates and the work that the district has been doing for several years. And Swartz Creek has become a recognized leader in this area. And I'm quite excited about the work that's being done there. The staff is reading a book about trauma-informed care called Classroom 180. And that sounds very interesting. Also, we asked questions about opportunities for staff support throughout this very challenging time. And they shared some of the information, like the conversations that are taking place, the mindfulness, some trauma and wellness activities, and then really paring down some of the testing, except for what's really required, like the third grade reading law testing. And then as Ben highlighted, the vaccine access may be something that will put some people at ease. And then some check-ins at either through Zoom or at the buildings, maybe helping people at least, get some support from each other. And then Ben also expressed gratitude, and I would list all of them, but the district coaches, I don't want to miss anybody, for their commitment and support to the staff and students. And some of the folks are on here tonight, Jody, and we really appreciate all that those folks are doing and continue to do. Next month, we will get a data review for the STAR math and reading data, and that will become the benchmark for all kindergarten through 11th graders. And Travis is processing the data for state submission. We'll have available 3 years of fall and 3 years of winter data that will allow us to compare how students have progressed and then kind of give us a window into what's going on during the pandemic. State Superintendent Rice submitted a waiver for standardized testing for the 2021 year to the U.S. Department of Education. And I believe he's done that previously and they accepted the waiver. Correct, Rod? Yeah. So given the circumstances of right now, we hope that they will accept that. And then, as I mentioned, we will see at our February academic achievement meeting 3 years of that comparative data, which we've seen over the last few years, and it's always very enlightening. We got updates on the modalities and the continuity of learning and what the second semester modality breakout looks like, what the organization of the buildings and some of the staff assignments. And then we also learned that the high school is going to a 1 per semester grade period. And we talked briefly about safety protocols that are under review to see, what needs to continue and what can change over time. And there was no public comment.
Any questions?
I have a couple, Carrie.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. And last month I made an issue of it about this, I guess it's the STAR program. So we're going to get 18, 19, and 20 then is what you're telling me, because I asked Ron about it last month or last 2 weeks ago in our meeting, correct?
Yeah, we're going to
Is that-
get, so we're just finishing and wrapping up the winter of 21 right now. And then once that's wrapped up, we will have 19, 20, and 21 of winter and 18, 19, and 20 of fall. So it'll be a 3-year from fall to fall and a 3-year from winter to winter.
Right, or at least a 2.5 rod is what you're saying. Okay, good.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I asked for. Yep, that's great. Now I got one other question. Will that be broke down by modalities?
We've been talking to Mike and Travis. They're trying to pull that off between those that are entirely virtual and those that are entering in the building. So I'm going to check in with him next week just to make sure that he's able to do it. It's not tied directly into Power School, so he has to manually sort that. But we think we're going to be able to do that.
Okay, that's great. I think it'd be beneficial for the board and the district, because that way we hear all these different statistical data on the news and other forms of information that we get from the MSB and other facilities. But I think it would be good to judge our own district by looking at our modalities, the virtual, the in-house, and then the blended. So we can make our own decision when they try to make decisions for us. And one other question when you answer that one. Is that good? So we're done at Rod?
Say, yeah. What's the question, Chuck?
I know there's going to be a problem with maybe some gathering it, but hopefully we can do it so we can look at it as district, right?
Yeah, we will have it all out there, and we'll have it sparsed out by modality as best as we can. Normally we look at growth, but because there's no spring scores, we can't really calculate a growth. So we'll probably look at a proficiency measure, which is what we used to look at, 5-10 years ago. But we will have measures, and you will be able to make some comparisons. And I'll bring up all the other obstacles that come with the data. So as you're looking at the data, you'll be able to look at things that may have impacted it positively or negatively, and I'll put that all together in a package.
That'd be great. I kind of want it disaggregated so we could kind of look at it individually. I got it. So I think we're on the same page if we can get that.
I think so.
And then the last question I have, yep, that's what I want to see. Yep. And then the last question I have is, will we be able to tell, broke down in modalities once again, attendance, which is very important, because I hear a lot of the kids just get up and some don't even want to go to school, so they don't log on their computer. Will we have access to that information?
We could pull attendance reports from Power School. I don't know about whether someone has logged in or not. That would have to have been kept manually by a teacher, so I'm not sure if I can tell you exactly how many people logged on or not. I can see what the principals have on their lists. I can definitely tell you attendance that we record electronically into our SCCS.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. I guess if they didn't log on, they didn't show up to school, and that would give the board an idea of when we were online, how many children didn't even log on. And I would hope that the teachers kept track of that. They're talking about all the stuff they did online. If they got 30 kids in their class, then they should know how many kids showed up, right?
Right.
Or, yeah, no, okay.
Yeah.
That's all.
We'll figure out a way to pull that.
That number.
Yeah, can I comment too?
Sure. I mean, I was asking, I think it's beneficial for all of us. Alicia, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think that data is good to look at a high view, but you have to keep in mind that there's going to be a lot of asterisks on that because there's so many kids and so many situations where they were in the classroom face to face and then had to go out, whether that was personal, family, or whatever. So then they were online for a portion, or they were originally face to face and changed their modality partway through. So although that data I think will be worth looking at, it may not be the most effective, just down to the minutia like that. So I just want to caution that as well. Rod and Ben can probably attest to some of that, but it's really difficult. I mean, you can look at the modality that the child or that class originally was assigned to, but there were so many changes through the semester that it's really difficult to compare. It's really not apples to apples.
Yeah, one additional thing that I could share, and I don't know, Chuck, if this would help you. We worked pretty hard over the last month for the kids that have historically been maybe, as you're describing, not showing up, and we certainly have had that happening. We really worked over the last few weeks to say, for those kids, they're either going to have to move totally in an asynchronous format, or they're going to have to come back to school and be face to face. They can't keep sitting in a class and not show up and not do the work. It doesn't work. So we can pull some numbers of students that fell into that category where we had to move them into a different modality because they were not engaging with the online teacher. And we do know who those kids are.
Okay, I don't know if I guess I'm concerned if I was in person for a month and then I decided to go virtual for a month and I didn't show up to 29 classes out of my 30 classes, why we wouldn't have data on that if the teachers are monitoring it like they said they are. Why wouldn't I have that? I mean, when I teach a class here, I know who's here and who's not. And if they want to do it on Zoom or somewhere else, I keep track of it and I log in who came to my class and who didn't. And I think that's an important data. I don't want to get down to, I'm off one number, but I think that should be a bar that we look at for online schooling. I don't know why. I mean, the teachers last month told me that they were working hard. They've been keeping track of everything. Why wouldn't we have that data? Numbers don't lie.
Ben,
Yes.
from your educator standpoint, your instructional leadership standpoint, what type of metrics make the most sense for a district to track, and what are others doing? What other school districts are across the state?
Well, some districts are tracking nothing at this point other than their required benchmark assessments. We do track attendance. We do a lot of localized data that we track with our MTSS teams. So I think what Chuck is really asking for is probably possible in some form. I'm just trying to manage expectations because the online classroom, let's just say a teacher's teaching in Google Classroom or Canvas, they don't have sessions the same way that they do in a live face-to-face course. And so you're not going to necessarily track attendance through PowerSchool, which is our student information system, in the same fashion. So I don't want to say that we don't have attendance data. Our teachers are very much so reaching out and checking in with the kids. But in terms of pulling a report for you to see this many times this kid logged in, while that would probably be beneficial, the technologies that have been in place, they don't talk to each other in that same way. So I believe we'll be able to work on a report because I think it's a reasonable request. I just don't want anybody to think that we're going to be able to get you the same granular data that we can get for a kid who is being recorded in PowerSchool face-to-face or in hybrid.
That's fine. Thank you. I mean, that's all I wanted to hear. I wanted to make sure that we had, I didn't know. I thought a child checked in that, on a Monday and they were given their assignments and then they checked back with them midweek And then maybe the first of the following week that we would have some type of data on that if the technology's not there. I assumed it was, but I shouldn't assume that. That makes sense. Thank you. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Ben. I have no more questions.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, Chuck.
Ryan.
All right, moving on. We have the finance report, Mike.
Yes. Finance Committee did meet on Monday afternoon. Chris Gray gave a briefing and there was discussion on the budget amendment that is on the agenda and will be voted on this evening. The cash and investment summary was reviewed and it is on the website for your review. The bond general trades bid packets are in, and then we'll be sharing some good news this evening prior to our voting on that. The check register for December has been reviewed and the following noted. General fund 143 checks for $366,961.48. Payroll 18 checks, $2,527,823.75. Building and site 2 checks for $182,919.83. Food service 2 checks, $97,285. Student account fund 9 checks, $4,615.90. The debt fund 1 check for $10,055.76 to Flint Township for overpayment on property taxes. The bond fund 9 checks for $1,264,975.44. There were no public comments. The committee thanked Chris Gray for her outstanding work and briefing on the budget amendment. The next meeting is February the 8th at 2 p.m. and we adjourned at 2:54 p.m. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. We look forward to hearing more during Chris's section. All right, finally, I think we have building and site.
Okay, Carrie. Yeah, I'll try to make it short. We met at 3:03 p.m. on January 25th, 2021. We did it via Zoom. I may have a typo in there. We got done at approximately 3:45 p.m. It may say 5:26 on my report. I apologize for technical difficulties. Present was Mike, Jessica, Brian, Ben, Rod, Travis, and Chris, and along with myself. The first agenda item, as you can see on my minutes, was the window treatment program. The window treatment has been applied to the following schools as approved by previous board action that we did a couple months ago. That included Elms, Morsteak, and some were added to Gaines. There's discussion that Ben said that some covering still need to be done at Cyrene, although it's very minor. He said himself and Travis, along with, RC and other people have inspected it, and they were very happy with the quality and workmanship of the window coverings. Does that pretty much sum it up, Ben? On that?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Good. Pool update repair. The pool has been repaired as per the bid specs. We approved that a couple months back. The side drains have been installed. New pumps are installed. The pool is nearly full and working well. It is anticipated the pool will be open very soon once the water was, in full operation. The next agenda item was water issues at Swartz. While the pool was being repaired, There was a complaint that some of the water is discolored in some of the water phones and water filling stations in other areas of the middle school, along when the pool was being filled. The maintenance department had a Swartz Creek DPW along with the Genesee County Water Department look at this issue. It was determined that some of the pipes may have been jarred possibly while they were doing the pool work. They looked for leaks, no leaks being found. The lines were flushed out, and the Genesee County Water and Waste gave it a clean bill of health. And this was per Ben also an RC. I'm sorry. Good. And then the next one was preventative maintenance position. This position, Ben is requesting that there be one new position added to the maintenance department for all mechanical equipment throughout the district. This would free up the skilled technicians and do more critical. That way the skilled technicians could do more critical work and not tie them up, changing filters, belts, and other minor issues. This person would be added strictly to do all routine maintenance, free up the technical workers, and hopefully save the district money in the long run. Ben and Chris Grace indicate that money is in the budget for this item, and the cost would be approximately $35,000 to $40,000 per year after they top out in 7 years. So I think the price was around 32 to start out, and it would top out at 40 after 7 years. Chris indicated there was money in the budget for this. There also was a request for a maintenance lead position. Ben thought it would be beneficial in having an additional position as a coordinator to work with RC to be able to run the facilitation of all support staff, including custodial, maintenance, and grounds work. As RC is kind of wearing two hats with this currently. This hopefully will save time and money from duplicating of services and RC running around and then trying to make sure that everything is being done on the mechanical side. The district would run more efficiently, and the support staff for this cost would be between $35,000 and $40,000 per year. After topping out, Chris stated that the budget had been adjusted this year to cover this position and reflect this for this position this year. Next item was the maintenance truck sale. Nothing to report here. One of the older trucks need to be auctioned off ASAP per RC. It's in need of a lot of repair. It's out used its usefulness and fulfill its service to the district, and we'll go through the established bid process. And the building fund sinking fund, Ben and Chris would like the building committee and the board as a whole to discuss several projects that have been identified for major repair this year, and would like to begin the process of allocating $250,000 towards these projects after board approval. Meeting ended, as I said, approximately 3:45. There was no public comment, and that's all I have for that. Thank you.
Any questions for Chuck?
I went back to mute, but it shows me yellow highlighted that I'm still talking, so I've been over to my report. Did everybody get it?
Yes. You're breaking up a little bit for me. I don't know about others, but your voice is coming through okay. All right. Going on, we have several board discussion items tonight, starting with clarification on the discussion we had about Mary Crapo. Is that you, Ben?
Yeah, I had just a request to make sure that I had clarified everything, and so I apologize if I hadn't. At the previous board meeting and leading up to that meeting, I explained that, and possibly not clear enough, that the Communities First organization had an agreement with us that started a little over a year and a half ago, and at the time we essentially gave them the Mary Crapo building for a very small amount, like $1 for them, and then they would be building us a field in the district somewhere to replace the field that we'd be losing that's on that current property. But the point of clarification I just wanted to make was that they were granted a maximum of 2 extensions in the original agreement. They exhausted those 2 extensions. They were 6-month extensions. And so therefore, we brought that back for the board to discuss if they would be willing to give them 1 additional extension. That was part of the conversation at the last meeting. Since then, I did share out the new instrument that would be the new extension. One point of clarification, and I appreciate Mike bringing it to my attention. They did show my expectation and understanding, as well as what I believe the board's was that they would be paying the same fee for the current extension that you granted as they did before. It does not show that on this newest instrument. So I did confirm with them over the past couple days that they will be paying $2,000 for the extension, which represents essentially 2 6-month extensions, which was what they were given in the previous instrument. So I wanted to make sure that that was clear. And then if anybody else had any questions or discussion, they could ask at this time.
Any questions for Ben?
I'd like to make a statement.
Go ahead, Mike.
I would like to make sure the board understands that beside replacing the baseball field at Mary Crapo, that the district has made an agreement or a settlement to replace or to bring up to code the baseball diamond at the high school or at the middle school, our baseball diamond, to make it comparable to the softball field. I don't know if everybody on this board understands that. That's another reason that I voted against this extension. That I believe that agreement is supposed to be settled this year, but I'm not certain on the date. And I think that just needs to be clear to the board. Ben is right. They had 2 extensions. The contract limited it to 2, and they used it. In November, at the building and site, we were informed that they possibly that they probably were going to be asking for this extension. And at that time, we had discussion, the people that were on the building and site then, we had discussion about replacing the baseball diamond. And I just want to bring that up.
Ben, can I ask a question, Carrie?
Sure, go ahead,
Can I have
Chuck.
the floor? Thank you, Carrie. I don't know anything about that, whatever that agreement was, because I think it was before my time and right when I was coming in.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know the details of it wholly, just what I've heard from other members and former members. But Ben, just to clear everything up, what would it cost us, do you think? Was there ever a study done on raising Mary Crapo and just keeping that property for us and putting in ball diamonds and maybe a lacrosse field or something and a running track around there? Did we ever discuss that, or was that even a possibility of an option that the board's considered? Or is it too late to do that, you think?
I think depending on what happens with the Communities First organization, if the district were to retain the property for some reason, I do think that would have to be a conversation. When we originally did a survey and we kind of listed out what some options were, one of the options was, the demolition of the building. We did receive at the time, and I'm not sure that is going to still be the same sentiment, but we did receive at the time a lot of pushback in the community. A lot of people felt like they didn't want to see the building. They wanted to see the building repurposed, if at all possible. In terms of a detailed financial study on what it would take to demo that building, we haven't had an actual quote or an estimate to do so. So very informally, we've talked to some contractors. The issue that we would run into with Mary Crapo, it's not as simple as getting a crane and a bulldozer and just knocking it down. The regulations that we're under as a school district require that all of the asbestos be abated before the demolition would occur. and that building is in every single room there's asbestos. So it would be a large sum of money to do the abatement before the demolition, and that's really the challenge that we're in. So the belief is that it would be hundreds, probably in the upper hundreds of thousands of dollars to demolish the building. And it was also estimated at the time that it was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to bring the building up to an acceptable level with the fire department and all of the safety codes to occupy the space. So the numbers were large, and that's why at the time we decided if there was another way we could preserve the community asset, certainly, didn't have the money at the time that this decision was made to do those other options. And so we felt like this was a good opportunity at the time. And that may be a different feeling amongst certain community members and certain board members at this time, which I certainly understand as well. But that's also what led us to moving into the Little Dragons Learning Center and getting into that space as well. So that kind of all happened around the same time.
Is there grant money available for abatements normally with a district when it has to do with asbestos?
I believe that there are probably more and more grants coming out now. We're being told with, COVID, for example, there's a lot of grants that deal with improving air quality and things like that. So I wouldn't want to say that I can exhaustively say that there's not, because there may be. Unfortunately, those typically are going to be for spaces that are occupied by students, which that one would not be at this time. But, it's certainly a possibility.
I was kind of confused on last month's vote too, but I think it warrants some discussion by board members, not a long, lengthy thing. I mean, just so everybody airs it out. So thank you.
Thank you. And thanks, Mike, for your comments. Appreciate that. And Ben, you'll keep us updated about any ball fields or any developments as you hear them, correct?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Thank you. All right, moving on to the Swartz Creek High School presentation.
So for this presentation, I would like to invite Mr. Kitchen and Mrs. Morgan to share some pretty exciting things happening at the high school.
All right, hello everyone, and I have to say it brings me great joy to see Jack in that seat. He was, when I came to the high school, he was one of the first students I had the opportunity to interact with, and so I know he's going to go far, and all the best to you, Jack. Congratulations on becoming a member of the board. So I'm going to talk about teacher labs here for a few minutes, and to kind of give you some history of teacher labs. And you can probably go back to the last 100 years. Teaching is one of the most lonely positions you can be in. You're in your classroom with your students, you're teaching a lesson, you wonder if you're teaching it well. You don't really have the opportunity for another master teacher to sit in with you and watch and give you a reflection of your practice. And so for a long time, teachers kind of survived on this island, if you will. And then about 6 years ago, through our MTSS team, we introduced teacher labs in Swartz Creek. And it really was an amazing PD. It was an opportunity for a teacher to be observed by other teachers, and then time was filled in for them to be able to reflect on their practice. They were asked questions about their practice. And so teachers really commented about how that was a great opportunity for them to be able to get feedback from especially those who are in the trenches with them. And so now fast forwards, what I call now the forced revolution, where all of our teachers are now required to deliver instruction in some capacity in an online format. And so we start again with this idea of teachers wondering how they're doing with their online format, because there's really not an opportunity for peers to sit in and watch how they're using the instrument. Our biggest indicator here that we want all of our teachers to be able to master is student talk. And so how does that look, when you're doing remote learning? And so with that, our district-wide K-12, we came up with the idea of having virtual teacher labs. And so we had our first one last month, and basically it was a great opportunity for us to present one of our master teachers, and then for teachers to be able to reflect on what they see. We asked them various questions to look for, and then we tried to model good practice within the modality. So for example, I asked Jody Morgan if she would lead our first teacher lab, and she was using Zoom to break the teachers out into small groups, and I'll let her talk to you about more of the details, but I can say that it was a great experience and something that we want to continue to really help support our teachers with as they begin this new journey that is never going to go back to the old way again. To be a teacher now, you will have to know how to be effective in an online format. And so Jody, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about our teacher lab and some of the details with that.
Sure, thanks, Mr. Kitchen. So one of the conversations that we had been having kind of organically was just that what we know to be best practices in the classroom when we have our students in front of us are still the best practices that we need to be implementing, even if we're in the virtual format. So one of the things, but it presents with different challenges, obviously, because those students aren't right in front of you. But we talked about 3 specific areas that were important. One, that there needs to be some kind of community building that needs to go on. So teachers and students are connecting with each other, students are connecting with each other. Obviously, there has to be some kind of whole group lesson in that platform, and then feedback and guidance for students. So those were the 3 global areas that we're looking at, and we know that there are best practices. And so what we did with our teacher lab is try to format it so that the teachers could experience kind of the student side of what it's like to kind of be in that platform, but also to get them to share resources and ideas with one another. So we did, as Mr. Kitchen said, have a master teacher who had submitted, we had several teachers who had submitted videos for review, and Mr. Kitchen chose Jeff Doro, one of our science teachers, whose video we then brought together, and during a virtual time when all teachers were together, we actually observed his classroom video together. And while the teachers were observing the video, I asked them to look for those 3 key areas, community building, whole group lesson, and what did that look like, including student engagement and sharing, and then feedback and guidance that the teacher gave to students as a whole or individually. And they were looking for evidence and impact on learning in that time frame. And so the teachers observed the video, they had opportunity to kind of reflect as they were watching. And then when the video was completed, I did, as Mr. Kitchen noted, break the teachers out into 8 different breakout rooms, because there's approximately 40 to 50 teachers here at the high school. And in their breakout rooms, then what I asked them to do was to discuss these look-fors, we call them, what you're looking for. What was the evidence of those things? How is that similar and or different from maybe what you do in your own sessions virtually with your students? And then they also had opportunities to share, like maybe if it was something that was similar, what are some other ways maybe that they've extended it differently? So the whole idea is getting teachers to collaborate with one another and to really bolster what they're doing, because we don't want them to feel like they are on these islands all onto their own. And then after they had approximately 10 minutes or so to share in these breakout sessions, we brought the whole staff back together in a Zoom, just like this, everybody together, and then they could share out what the discussion was to the whole group, kind of in this whole group setting. So what was their small group discussion? What were some of those things? And then again, they were sharing with one another. The beauty of this is that it doesn't have to stop here. One of the things we found even after the meeting, I know Mr. Kitchen received several emails. I received several emails of teachers saying, hey, I'd really like to share this with the staff if we ever have an opportunity. Or, hey, if we have the opportunity to do this again, could we do this? And so the teachers were kind of identifying the things that they realize they need extra assistance in, or how they want to share with their peers at the same time. And so it's an ongoing give and take. We have a lot of different pieces that we know as we are back face to face here, that they are going to have to continue to work in this online platform because we do have students who could end up quarantined. It's possible that we could end up out again at some point in time. Heaven forbid, that's not what I want. But if that is the case, we certainly have to understand how we're going to continue to support our students. And so we're in this really I consider a great growth period. You know, it doesn't come without a few hiccups or pains along the way. We certainly have areas where we know we have to continue to grow. But I always say that great changes are always preceded by a little bit of chaos. So I think we've experienced enough chaos. I'm over that now, and I'm ready for that growth. And we're seeing it now. We're seeing it in teachers saying, hey, you know, like, this is something I was really interested in doing, but because I was going about just the day-to-day things, I didn't really it didn't reach priority. Well, we've been forced into some priorities. And so they're making them not just priorities now, but now they're just standard practices. And I think that that's something that is worth celebrating, you know, across the board, whether that's just at the high school, whether it's at the high school. I know middle school did a very similar process, and elementary buildings as well. And I'm just excited to see where this time continues to take us.
Are there any questions, or is there anything else, Jim or Jody?
Oh, no, well, there's always something, but no, this was one of our big initiatives here, and we're going to continue to support our teachers with these virtual labs. We get great feedback from it, and we know that it's impactful to instruction. So,
It's a great idea.
Can I
Great
make a quick
concept.
comment?
Go ahead, Jack.
I just wanted to say, as a former student of Mr. Doros, that was a great pick as an example for other teachers. For instance, I had him for chemistry. I can still name off most of the elements on the elemental table, not all of them, but most of them. So I just wanted to say that that was a great example, and I'm glad that you guys picked him.
thank you.
Are you doing this in other, what's the word I want? Elementary, middle school, the other levels?
Yes, it's a K-12, and you know, Rod could speak to how it, you know, was implemented at the other levels. But yes, it is a K-12 initiative through our MTSS program.
Yeah, we had, I think, 6 or 7 teachers overall, K-12, that were focused in different buildings as a model lesson to look at. We before last year, we had done 5 years of teacher labs throughout the district in person. What makes this so unique is the ability to teach online is so new and so different, and everybody needs an example and some time to think and discuss and reflect on their practice. Plus, it is free. Doing it this way, you don't need a sub to pull teachers out. You just take their online lesson, which is recorded, and you throw it up in a Zoom. Everybody can watch and talk and discuss. So amazing kudos to all the levels, especially the high school, for taking that on, because it's a great insight when you can get your peers together and reflect.
Well, and to extend on that, Rod, too, I know I've had conversation with teachers who were like, can we do this even though we're back face to face? Maybe you could come in video, and then we can still do it in this virtual realm. You know, we could share out the videos, but it would be a way to allow for teacher labs to continue in the future so that they're not pulled out of their classrooms. I think that's one of the concerns teachers always have, is being away from their students and out of the classroom. But you know, when it organically comes from the teachers, you know, voluntarily saying, hey, you can come and, you know, observe in my classroom, I'll let you video, and then we could share it out like this. I think that's always a win.
Yeah.
Jody, I love your quote. I love it more than out of adversity becomes innovation. So I'm going to keep that one. And I think Alicia will agree. In the healthcare business, telehealth is now the thing that people are doing. And nobody would have ever thought that. It was, you know, a foreign concept. Now, that's what people do. So this is great. This is absolutely amazing. And hopefully it will enrich the development of the staff, and they'll really enjoy it. It sounds like it's fun, too.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say, I think even out of all of this too, and across different businesses, I don't know what else I want to say. The ability to be able to self-evaluate and reflect too. So the fact that you can record that, but also kind of look at yourself and how that teacher is doing their own classroom, and then the feedback that they get from their peers. This whole pandemic's been horrible, but there's a lot of good that's coming out of it too. And it's just changed the way that we do so many different industries. It's exciting to hear that they're at least growing through this process.
Yes.
Any other questions for Jody or Jim? We want to thank both of you for taking your evening to spend it with us, and we really appreciate all that you and many others are doing and have done.
Well, thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity.
Have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. That was great. Next, we have our budget amendment presentation from Ms. Gray.
Oh,
Let Chris go ahead and get started.
okay, I'm gonna do share screen. Okay, can everybody see my first slide?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so we're going to talk about our budget revision for 2021. General overview, we started out at the beginning of the year, fund balance at 5.27 million. That was about 14% of last year's expenditures. We're looking at total revenue for this revision at 40,580,000. Expenditures at 40,617,000. That's going to leave us an operating loss at just under $38,000. So we're estimating our fund balance is going to go down a bit, right around 12.89% at 5.236 million. Next slide is the resolution, and just it's an overview. It shows revenue. It breaks it down by local, state, federal, other financing sources and transfers. Local revenues at 6,086,000. State revenue 30,516,000. Federal revenue 3.3 million. Other financing sources 519,000. And transfers from other funds, and this is a transfer from food service at 80,000. So the total revenue, as already stated, $40,580,266. And when we look at a total available to appropriate, we include revenue from this year and of the available fund balance. It gives us the total available to appropriate at $45,854,300. Out of the available funds to appropriate, we're looking at appropriating only $40,617,925, and the expenditures are broken down under instruction with basic, added needs, and adult ed. Under support services, we have pupil support, instructional staff, general ed, school administration, business services, operation and maintenance, transportation, central services, athletics, community services, other financing uses, transfer to other funds, which would be transfers to like the ISD, and total expenditures, as already stated, at $40,617,000, leaving our projected fund balance at $5.2 million. So this is the formal resolution that is signed. On the next slide, just an overview, kind of just tells the story of what's going to happen in the next slides with some more detail, just to give you an idea. On the left side is all the revenue changes. The green I've highlighted, those are all the local revenue changes. So we have property taxes that went down 13,000. We had a lot of decreases in local revenue. We had athletics because we're not collecting gates. Athletics went down. Childcare revenue also went down because our programming changed. We only have before and after care for childcare now. Our Performing Arts Center, the revenue, we aren't having any performances right now. So our revenue, we're estimating going down 106,000. Community ed also decrease 20,000. Rental revenue, primarily from the cage, we're losing about 44,000. And then just some other local revenue, 4,200. In the blue, I've highlighted those Those are the state sources. So we have state aid, an increase a little over almost 1.2 million. Primarily, we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail, but primarily because the amount that we estimated per pupil went up. We were estimating that it was going to go down 300. It did not go down 300. And then also we had a little uptick in what we budgeted for student FTEs. We also had a one-time state aid line item, a categorical $236,000. This is a really nice line item. Unfortunately, it is one time, but it is unrestricted state funds. And then we had some other decreases in state aid, $306,000 for our retirement payment flow through. And then we had some miscellaneous state aid grant revenue. They're grants, but they flow through the state aid. We had at-risk, bilingual, GSRP, and that was a total of $194,000 increase. In the red, those are federal sources, primarily due to the CARES Act funds. We had increase of just over 1.7 million in federal CARES Act funds. We had IDEA grant funds that also increased a little bit, 13,000, and then just some other miscellaneous federal grants at $338. And we had some other miscellaneous transactions like the sale of school vehicles, some other transfers. That was about $15,000. So on the right side under expenditures, we had total changes of $1.28 million from the original budget. So a lot of the staffing changes that happened just from the normal course of the year, we had resignations, we had degree advancements, we had new hires, we had leaves. All in all, those types of changes, there was a decrease in $94,000. We had some other building staff changes that happened once the year started. We had a lot of subs. Subs were a focus to make sure we had premier subs in place. So we added budget for that. We had some new hires. We had some resignations, just the normal ebb and flow of HR in a school building added to about $160,000. Not necessarily normal, like, every year, but just we had some things due to COVID, but they weren't abnormal to a school district. And so some other things that happened, I added some funds for the policy update service that we're going to have through Troon, just under $17,000. We added some funds because in the original budget, we took out some vacation payouts, and in this revision, we're adding those back in. Maintenance department had a lot going on for the budget revision. So we added some placeholders for some new positions. At the time of the budget revision, when I was finalizing this, I didn't have the actual, I didn't know exactly who we were going to hire or how many weeks it was going to be for the remainder of the year. So those positions have placeholders in them. So when we go to the final revision, you'll see minor adjustments, a couple $1,000s here or there. But so with the new positions, salary and benefit adjustments, COVID related expenditures, we increased in the maintenance department $320,000. But we also saw in the maintenance department, we had a consumer's energy rebate we had a discussion about this, but we had a rebate that we decreased expenses $200,000. So that's a one-time decrease. We'll have to add that back in for next year for our electrical usage. Transportation, we increased $45,000 for our first student contract. But we also saw that we were able to decrease on our transportation department. Our ISD expenditures were down $247,000. We added for pupil accounting, we added for the remainder of the year, it was about a $46,000 add a position. And then for technology, we also added a position for a partial part of the year, around $50,000. And then we talked about the revenue on the local side, community ed, childcare, and PAC. Expenditures also went down as the revenue went down in each of those areas. And then our grant side, when we see, like on the Federal CARES Act, the grant revenue going up, we're going to see obviously the corresponding grant expenditures also going up. So that's what we're seeing on the expenditure side. So a lot of changes, but not too bad. So when we're talking about the state aid, the enrollment data, is important, and per pupil counts are very important. So this year, due to a lot of the pandemic issues, they came up with something to help all the districts in the state, and they called it the super blend for calculating the membership this year. Not sure what they're going to do next year, but this really helped us. It helped smooth the numbers, and so we could have really been hit really hard. So this really helped us out. So what they did was, normally there's a 90-10 blend, 90% usually from the fall and 10% from the supplemental count. What they did is they took the 90-10 blend from 1920 and they gave us 75% of that. And then they added the 90-10 blend from 2021 at 25%. So those numbers together, we ended up seeing an uptick in our blended count from what we had budgeted. So all in all, great news. We hope that our numbers hold for, steady, and that even if this isn't around, there won't be any problems next year. So I went through the super blend calculation quickly. So I just shout out if you have any questions. As I mentioned, the student count data, I gathered this from CEPI, from the data, and you can see we don't have our fall count audited yet, so it's unaudited, but we did go down. But given that our super blend smoothed out our count, it really didn't hamper our state aid this year. We were down, looks like, on our general ed side, 127 students. And you can see what's kind of nice, what I like to look at is just the trend. So if you follow them grade to grade, you can kind of see, where the numbers are kind of moving. And so when we look at next year, this is kind of where we look to see how they're trending by grade to give us an idea, and we also use some data from the ISD. They have somebody there that provides data on county level, like what the trends are for movements of students and families. Okay, on the next slide. Just spoke briefly about our instructional staff changes. We had a lot of staff movement, and because of our grade level configuration at the elementary buildings, and then also with COVID, there was just a lot of shifts, and moving people for hybrid, for online, the different modalities added a lot of complexity on the HR and business side. And then we also really had a focus on subs with covering a lot of the COVID related absences. We fully utilized Premier subs. We were really grateful to have those. That's not really what they were there for, but that's what they ended up being used primarily for. Going into second semester, we'll see what happens with absences, but we'll just keep working at it. This next slide gives us a nice overview. In the yellow, it compares our actual, where we ended up last year, to where our budget revision is, and we can see, like, kind of where some changes happened. And then on the blue, in the blue column, you can see the original budget compared to the revised budget, the differences. And we've already talked about these numbers. The revised numbers, the breakout is identical to what we've discussed already. And then the expenditures get broken down even more on the next few slides. So if you go back to here, to this slide, if you want to look at maybe your basic instruction, and you want to see, okay, there's a $36,000 difference from original budget to revised budget, you can see it, the differences in what's going on these next few slides. And I mean, it's a lot of data. I'd be glad to go through it if anyone had any questions specifically, but it might be, it might cause everybody to go to sleep this late at night. So as I said, here's the expenditure detail for the next few pages. It's included here just because it is a good reference. And then we'll get to the next set of slides that break out nice graphs. We always include these because it's nice to kind of see. Some people are visual and like to see what it looks like in a graph. So this breaks out the revenue, and you can see that the majority of our revenue, 75%, comes from the state. So that'd be state aid, state grants, 9% from federal, 1% from other, and 15% local. That would be like property taxes. And then when we look at breaking out our expenditures by function, we have groups of functions here. You can see that instruction is the largest function of expenditures, 57%, followed by pupil support, which would be special ed services, speech, and resource room, those type of things, social workers. And then general support services at 11%, operations 8%, transportation 4%, central services 2%, athletics 2%. And the next slide is the trend on our fund equity. So last year we ended at just about 14.36%. This year we're looking at just down a little bit, down to 12.89%. It's a nice visual just to kind of see where we're trending and over time. One more graph on the expenditures. It breaks it out by object code. So you can see if you add the salaries and benefits, that's kind of, you know, the majority of our, and it's always the majority of our expenditures. We're at 76%, purchase services 14%, supplies 9%, capital outlay only 1%, dues and fees and other are less than 1%. Okay, moving on to food service. We're going to revise the budget. We ended last year at $722,000 in fund balance. We're looking at revenues, 1.669 million, expenditures, 2.137. We're looking at an operating loss, $467,884. We're projecting a ending fund balance around 254,000. That would be about 12% of expenditures. We're doing this strategically. We're trying to spend down. We're mandated to keep fund balance at a certain level. While I'm not sure that we'll go quite this low, this does give us the flexibility if we are able to buy some needed equipment and, you know, food service equipment, ovens, freezers, those kind of things, then we're able to. We're looking at a freezer at Cyrene. It's a big project, so hopefully we can get that done by the end of the fiscal year. The last slide, this is the resolution for food service. It breaks out revenue, local, state, and federal, similar to the general fund, how we did it. We have available to appropriate just under 2.4 million, and we're appropriating 2.1 million, with leaving us with, as we said, $254,000 projected fund balance. So that ends our budget review.
Any questions for Chris?
Yeah, I'd like to start out, Carrie, with
Go ahead.
this too. Okay.
Sure.
So we spent $1.7 million is what you're going to say, Chris, on food services for the year. Is that what you project? Or is what I'm coming up with roughly?
Expended, well, we're looking at 2,137,000 in expenditures.
Okay. And that, I know that includes staff and equipment and all our kids. Okay.
Yep, all our food costs, yep.
Are we feeding, remind me, I should know this because I've been big on this. Are we feeding the children throughout the summer? Did we feed them through the summer?
Yeah, actually we're running our summer food. It's an extension of our emergency food program that runs in the summer. The USDA is still running that. So we're still feeding everybody for free. So if you look at the revenue stream for food service, you can see the majority is federal because of that program. So right. I don't know if does that answer your question?
I'm doing quick math. So at 3,600 kids, which I know not all the kids are taking advantage of it, I just break it down per pupil. So if all 3,600 kids were taking advantage of it, it's $550 per kid to feed them for a year. Which, do we have a number on how many kids are actually using the program, or don't we break that?
Well, our claim, the process for the funds is a claim process. So we claim breakfast and lunch, and so depending on if it's hybrid, if it's in person, or if they're online, it's a complicated scenario because the people that are online, they pick up once a week. But when we go on break or when we're forced to go virtual, then it's a once a week pickup. So it becomes hard to tell on how many people were actually claiming in given time. It just depends on what month you're talking and what period, because the difference in the modality really dictates what's going on.
Right. I can see where the numbers would be diluted, but would Michael have a end of the week report on how many meals we put out? Would he have that saying, hey, we made 4,000 lunches and 4,000 breakfasts?
Well, sure.
Okay.
I mean, that's not something that I have, on hand.
No, I don't expect you to have it. I'm doing the yearly cost divided by the amount of students, but there's no way to tell them. I went with 3,600 students, and we don't know how many students are actually taking, advantage of that program, which you would agree with, right? We don't know that.
I mean, we know, I just don't have it in front of me.
Okay. And then you said that the fund balance is going down about 2%. So just give me a dollar amount. Don't give me a percent amount. How much do we have in money? I saw it on the form, but I couldn't read it. It's kind of small for me. So how much money do we have last year, and what are we going to have in our fund balance project at the end of this year?
Okay, we at the beginning of the year, we finished the year at 722,000, and we're looking at going down to $254,000.
Right. No, not on that. I'm sorry. You might have misunderstood me. In our general budget, our fund balance as a whole.
We started out in our general fund, beginning fund equity at $5,274,000, and now looking at the ending fund equity at $5,236,375.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
So it's going down $37,000.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
I think it does, and we don't know what exactly grant money we're going to qualify for. The grant money that if the government does approve us, none of that will be general budget money. It'll be for specific items, I'm sure. Is that true statement?
Exactly. Yep. I mean, we're lucky if we would find something that we could offset that we would have spent out of the general fund, but it's very rare. I mean, maybe there is a project, like filters. I know that's
let me give you an example. I know you're at the building and grounds, but like the water fountains that we approved about 6 months ago, the water bottle fillers. I know we kind of jumped on that because we thought school would be open, for the whole year, and we wanted to make sure the kids were safe. So did we use grant money for something like that, or did we use general funds and then we're hoping to get it back on grant money? Or maybe
we had some COVID funds that we could use for some PPE expenses and related sanitation. So we had about $44,000 for some expenses such as that. I don't necessarily know that we use it specifically on any of the plumbing related expenses for fountains, but we did use about $44,000 for PPE related expenses and sanitation, and it was grant funded.
We spent money on the backpacks and all that cleaning solutions for the buses and the classrooms.
Some of those did go towards those grant funds. Yep.
Let me ask you, of all the grant funds that we've received, have we exhausted all that we've received till date? Do you know that answer? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I don't know if you know it.
There are some pockets of money that we are trying to spend, but there's a lot of items that just are not available. So a lot of technology, we're trying to buy headphones, just like things that we've been approved for in the grant applications that are very specific, that those are the only items we can buy. We're having a hard time getting those. So we are working on those. And some of the other technology items that we still need, we still haven't even received them. So we don't have any grant money that's on the table that we haven't applied for. We don't necessarily have everything in hand yet. So we're still working on it. And the new round of ESSER funds, they call it ESSER 2. We don't have any allocations out at this point. So we don't even have any planning that we can, we've started thinking about like what we'll be able to use them on, but we don't know how much money. So we haven't even been able to apply. So that's still out there, but of course we'll apply for it when we can.
All right. And okay, two more quick questions. SR2, what's the acronyms for that the federal government's designated?
ESSER 2, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
I don't know what ESSER means.
That's okay. That's all right. I know there's all sorts of acronyms and nobody knows what they mean.
It's some, I don't know what it means.
All right. And number two is that all the bond money that, like you said, we've applied for, and Ben may have that. Can we get copies of that? I don't think I've ever seen a copy of that in any board packet.
Our bond. Are you talking like our bond actual or budget?
No. I misspoke myself. Our grant money from the feds. So if they say, hey, you could have, $1 million for item X and item Z, I haven't seen it. I don't know if the other board members have or not. So I just like to be able to see that. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Chris, you
Yeah,
mentioned
Chuck-
that you're having a difficult time getting things like headphones that are in short supply. Do the grants have an expiration date on them, or can you demonstrate that you attempted to get those items and you can continue to order them?
Yeah, up through December 31st, up through December 31st, there was one of the largest grants, the CRF funds. They were expired, like they had to be spent by December 31st, but they came out and said that they're extending that deadline through December 31st, 2021. So we were kind of in a bind, but we had some assurances that if the order was placed and we just hadn't taken, receipt of those items, that we were still good because we had placed the orders and it wasn't our fault. They've extended it through 2021, so we feel even more assured that, we'll comply. Hopefully we'll get it before the end of the year though, because we would like it in this fiscal year.
That's great. And then one more question related to the food service fund balance. I know in previous years we had to spend down because you can only have so much. Are we in compliance with the amount that we have?
Yes, we'd be in compliance if we were at around $600,000, but we're being a little safe here, saying we may spend more. I don't know that we'll go that low, but we potentially could.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Chris?
Sure.
Go ahead, Alicia.
And Chris, I apologize. I don't know that it's necessarily your question to answer, but it's part of this report. So I'm sure it's more of a Rod or Ben question. In looking at the student count data back in the beginning of your presentation, and first read, when I got this information previously, it was alarming that we had such a loss. I know part of that is just the fact that we can't count, but I don't know, Ben or Rod, if you could speak to that information, and then where are we at if we're able to kind of compare that across either the county, the state, whatever else we can compare to.
Yeah, sure. The state superintendent and the deputy superintendent sent a memo out this fall, just kind of raising the alarm. The state of Michigan is down. I believe the number is well over 50,000 students for this year. That is not because those students have left the state. It's because of the fact that we're in a pandemic and a lot of parents made the decision that they were not going to send their children to school. So it's a difficult time to really get a good gauge on that. One of the things that we do in the county is we talk about, who's down and by what amount. I don't want to, throw anyone under the bus or anything like that, but I would say that we did very well comparatively to other school districts. There are districts in our county that lost hundreds and hundreds of students this year. And it wasn't necessarily that those students moved away. It was that their parents, especially at the early elementary school, made that decision to say, we're just not going to send our kids to school this year. We're going to give them another year at home. We're going to homeschool them. And that's particularly true where both parents were staying at home working and could keep the kids at home with them. So the real question is going to be, what does it look like in future years? Obviously, we're hoping that those kids will get hooked up with one of our teachers. And even if they chose to be in an online modality, we'd be able to service their needs. And we're getting better and better at that this year for sure. And then I think another piece to the puzzle that's a little bit difficult to peg is the fact that when we have to try and count a student, when their butt is in a seat, so to speak, in a normal sense, when we have a count day, it's very easy to count those students. If you have a student who's online, the state's process for being able to count that student for funding formula is very difficult. So if we had a student, as we were talking earlier in the meeting, that maybe wasn't as easy to get a hold of or couldn't check in or log into one of their assignments during the count window, and we track them down, and we have principals and support staff and teachers trying to track them down during that count window. But we're not always successful. And in that case, we might have a student who's technically enrolled in the district, but we could not count them for that period because of the online challenges. So all of those things contribute to this factor across the state. I would say we're doing a better than average, but everybody's kind of feeling that pain right now. And that is exactly why the state chose to do the blended formula, so that it allowed for us to be able to say, all right, this year, obviously, there's a lot going on that's very atypical. So we're going to do a blended count formula across the state of Michigan. And so they're probably not going to continue that into next year. So the rubber is going to meet the road next year when we find out, do we get a lot of those kids back? So I'd say, next year, as we start looking at fall enrollments, I would be concerned if our numbers continue to drop. I will say I was pleased to see that our kindergarten numbers for the third year in a row were significantly stronger than they've been in previous years. So that's a good sign. And so hopefully that's a trend for times to come, but we'll have to wait and see and monitor that closely over each year.
And then just to follow up to clarify for everybody's purposes, the numbers that were provided are also just for general education, because I know we have boasted and appropriately that we've had growth over the last couple of years, very different than some of our cohorts in the county, but this still shows a little bit of loss over the last couple of years. But if you factor in other students not counted, we're still at a growth rate. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. And it also depends on what window your chart looks at, so if you're looking at spring to fall or fall to fall from year to year, that makes a difference as well. So, yeah.
Hey, Chuck, I found what ESSER stands for. Well, actually, Travis helped me out with that. He said, he found elementary and secondary school emergency relief.
Elementary and secondary school relief, that's just
emergency relief.
Okay, so the feds are going to shoot a certain amount of money to them. Okay, that's great, thank you. And a follow-up to Elisa's question, what is our head count, if you have one, Ben, of people that re-signed up for in-person training since we opened up schools a week and a half ago, roughly? Do you have that number, or hasn't that been established yet?
I don't have an exact number, but the number is in the hundreds. I believe it's between 200 and 300 students.
That's all that signed up in person?
No. Those are the people that are moving back to in-person from online.
Okay, so our original in-person was around 1,800 people, kids, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think one thing I can say more effectively is I could say that our numbers of in-person learning were hovering around 60 to 61%. And those numbers have jumped up to over 65%. I think we're between 65 and 67% right now.
That's great. I think that helps the board on the decision that we made a week and a half ago. And so that leaves us with 33% kids. How many are blended and how many are, now I'm going to ask a follow-up question. How many are blended and how many are fully online, if you have that answer, or Rod? Percentage-wise, number.
We're about 20% of our students are a little over 23%, I think, are online, and the rest are in blended. So the smallest portion of our students are choosing to be in blended. Okay. And some of the challenges that brings, I've had several, I understand concerned parents, this past week. So to kind of give you an example, in the high school, you might have a creative writing class that was offered. Well, you offered the class, but there were only 3 people who signed up for that class. And that's in a typical year, right? You would not be able to run a class of only 3 students, right? It's just, you can't financially make that work. So you have to cancel that creative writing class, and then the students have to be assigned to a different course. So that's a very typical scenario that happens every year. The challenge, of course, as you add complexity to the schedule, as we have this year by offering 3 different modalities, okay? You might have had a student that wanted a hybrid course, but a lot of those kids that were in those courses in the first semester elected to say, hey, I'm ready to go face-to-face. And so you also, similarly to my previous example, you can't really functionally run a class of 3 students and have that go. So there are some challenges with the schedule because of the complexities of that. And so you can't offer necessarily every single course or every single opportunity in all cases, because you have to be able to still work within the confines of the staff that we have. So those are all some of those challenges.
Yeah, that's not fiscally responsible to do that. But thank you for that information. I think that's good information for the board.
Sure.
But Ben, in those scenarios, the student could have chosen to take a class through Apex, correct?
Yes, absolutely. They could take an Apex course. They could have chosen to do online. That's the one kind of pathway that we've left open just because of the pandemic, and that's been requested of us by the state and the community. So that pathway is easy to go down, but when you're offering 3 basically schools at the same time, everybody wants to have what they want, and we try to offer that. But in the event that it becomes infeasible to offer, then there are other choices that have to be made. But yes, those kids that may be in that course could take an online or even an Apex course if that was what they needed to get to fill their schedule.
Okay. Any other questions? Chris, thank you so much. As always, much appreciated and very thorough. We appreciate it.
Welcome, thanks.
Okay. Moving on, is Travis back with us?
I'm here.
Hi, Travis. This is our opportunity for public comment. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, moving on to our board action items. We have 3 items for approval. Beginning with the approval of our Swartz Creek Community Schools 2020-21 budget amendment resolution. As presented, the information presented by Chris Gray. I would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Is that Jessica?
It is.
Or Alicia? Any comments or questions? All right, Joanne, could you do roll call, please?
Certainly. Mike? Mike?
You're muted, Mike.
Yes.
Thank you. Alicia?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Thank you. Carrie?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes, because of Chris's good work. I don't like spending more money, but well, because of Chris's good work and all her diligence. So yes.
Thank you. Brian?
Yes.
That's 7 yeses.
Okay, motion, resolution approved. Next, we have the approval of the Swartz Creek High School General Trades bid package for the 2018 bond project. Did you want to provide updates, Ben?
Yeah, I just wanted to, and I appreciate Mike bringing this up earlier. So in the original bids that we went out for the general trades package, we only had 1 bidder for that particular project. And so at that time, we made the decision to hold off on opening that bidder, because one of the things that happens in sealed bids is you don't want necessarily to put a number out there unless you're confident that you have enough bidders to be able to complete the task. So we did not open the general trades bid package for the first time around that you approved at our last board meeting. We did have bid openings a little over a week ago for the general trades package. We had estimated that the general trades package would cost us around a little over $900,000. We were pleasantly surprised to see that it was below that amount, and actually, more like $830,000 for the base bid. So we did save a little bit on what we thought we would spend. So we had a good bid turnout with 3 general trades contractors. It's a large package. And so we did post-bid interviews. And so after speaking with Wolgast and Jim, he's recommending our approval tonight so that they can get started on shop drawings.
All right, with that, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Chuck, support with Mike. I have a motion by Chuck and a support by Mike. Any comments or questions? All right. Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approve the Swartz Creek High School General Trades Bid Package 2018 bond project as follows. J. Perez Construction for General Trades in the amount of $835,000 with alternate number 1 for 2 new art rooms for an amount of $59,500 for a total amount of $894,500 as presented. Joanne, could you do roll call, please?
Certainly. Brian,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
and Carrie.
Yes.
That's 7 yeses.
Thank you, and motion passes. All right, finally, we have the approval of an auction of the district plow and truck. I would entertain a motion.
So move.
Brian,
Support.
Jessica,
Jessica.
any comments or questions?
I think we should give the truck honorable mentions. It's served us for almost 25 years, according to Chris. Support thing. So
We'll have to do that in our board comments, Chuck. Make sure that we recognize
20.
service.
That's a long. That's okay. I just make sure that thing gets a plaque or something. That's all. 25 years of hard work for the district. You should get a watch. The truck should get something.
You can actually
Just
see
get
the
aside.
asphalt. If you're sitting in the driver's seat, you can see the asphalt through the floor.
It's a Flintstone car.
I know, that's what you said. Poor thing. We've used it. We're just going to sell it off like a piece of equipment. Okay.
Any other comments or questions? All right, hearing none. Joanne, could you do roll call, please?
Sure. Jack,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Chuck,
Am I going to be the only no vote for the poor truck? Okay, I'll say yes. All right, we'll go ahead and we'll get rid of him. Poor
you
thing.
said yes?
Yeah. I feel like it's a dog or something. I don't want to get rid of it. I don't know why. We've had it for so long.
Carrie?
Yes, of course.
I'll say yes. Can we send it to the B-52 lot out in Arizona?
Jessica,
Yes.
that's 7 yeses.
All right. God rest the soul of the truck.
I was
All
serious.
right.
I was sad for the poor thing.
All right.
Didn't
we
you
are
tell my
on-
comments on a billion report or serve peacefulness?
So next we have comments or questions from our board. Anyone?
I have one to Ben right away. Ben, we've kind of let this slip by. What happened? I don't want to put you on the spot, but what happened with all the stuff in Mary Crapel? Didn't we store a bunch of stuff with Mary Crapo and we were supposed to bid it out? Did I miss that?
No, you haven't missed it. It just, because of the pandemic, it's been very challenging to be able to engage with that with the public. So it's still there. And we actually have been able to access it and use it for a variety of things. So for example, we've had classrooms that have come back in and we've needed a desk or, chairs or tables, and we've had some of those things available. Most of the stuff is still all there. It's cataloged. It's inventoried, and now it's just a matter of getting the auction site out. And they've been a little bit reluctant to come out with COVID and everything. So we're kind of waiting on them, but they're going to come out and take our pictures and do all of those things, and then hopefully get that auctioned off. So the one thing that we've asked of them is that when they do it, that they offer our community the first opportunity to be able to look through it, and even in person look through it. So I think that's part of, they're not doing a lot of in-person work right now. So you haven't missed it. It's still kind of there and on hold, but something that we will get to as soon as we can.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Carrie, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
This last week, I did attend the Genesee County Association of School Board Members. They're looking at revamping their bylaws as well. We're at the late stages of that. And we will be doing 6 $500 scholarships. Those applications are going out to high schools, I believe, this week. And I did update all of the information for our school board members for the association. And Jack, you have been added as the alternate. And I do want to say thank you to Mrs. Morgan and Mr. Kitchen for doing a wonderful job tonight, and not just tonight, but with our staff and our teachers. And third, I just want to thank all of our staff, because I still know what a difficult time this is, and our staff are still amazing rock stars. So thank you to every person on our staff. I really do appreciate all your efforts. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. Go ahead, Mike.
Last Saturday, I had the opportunity to observe the health department operation at the Flushing High School parking lot. It was ran by the health department and the Genesee County Sheriff's Department and private ambulance personnel. It ran from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and it was very cold out there. That operation was very, very efficient. It ran smoothly. The personnel were friendly and helpful. I'd like to thank them for their service and let them know that they're very much appreciated. Also, thanks to Ben for arranging for the first 31 of our staff to receive the vaccination.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Go ahead, Alicia.
I actually just thought of this question. I don't know that it's necessarily the appropriate place to ask it, but I know there's been comments or questions with the last couple of days. We finally got winter, so I think we can all be grateful that it's been a little bit mild so far. But with all of our learning modalities, what is the intent? Should we have an actual snow day? Since we have online students, hybrid students, and the ability, I mean, I know when we were in shutdown modes, we expected students that couldn't be physically in the classroom to go to an online format, but I want to be respectful as well to the teachers that, when it's a snow day, it's because, things aren't safe, and everybody's life kind of gets in uphill for the day. So can you, I guess, just clarify that, or do we know what our plan is?
Yeah, for sure. And I got a lot of emails and just really polite phone calls a couple days ago when everyone expected that it would be a snow day. And so for those students that happen to be watching, it is something that we monitor very closely. This past week, we unfortunately had nothing that had fallen. Well, fortunately, I should say we had nothing that had fallen prior to 7 a.m. And then at 7 a.m., it really started to come down. And as you know, we canceled evening activities. But it's very difficult to send elementary students home after they've been on the bus because their parents are working. Their parents have already signed up to go to their place of employment. And so oftentimes if you send kids back home, they may be going to a home that's unsupervised and they don't have childcare there. So that's always something that I think about when we think about, sending home early or something like that. Not to say that we wouldn't, but we like to avoid that if we can. In the event of a snow day, it's going to be like a normal year where there wouldn't be instruction for that day. Now, we are obviously in a little bit of a different era, and we have some tools available that we haven't in the past. So our teachers are in constant communication with us. Our teachers historically have done some really neat things on snow days, community service projects, and things where kids can go out and they read a book and they log on and they do some different things. So at this point, unless it became a point where we got had an excessive number of snow days, the plan would be to continue as a normal year where there wouldn't be any school scheduled for that particular day. And then in the event that, that became a further need, certainly our teachers are more than willing to work through that with us and figure out how to address it. So, we'll just kind of hope that the winter kind of stays mild and it doesn't become an excessive issue.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Alicia. Anyone else? All right, I would also like
I have
to.
one more comment, Carrie.
Go ahead.
Carrie, I'd like to just ask one quick question. Is Mr. Kitchen still on? Is he still here, Ben? I don't see him on our screen.
I think Mrs. Morgan's still available.
I see him.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, how's the high school students reacting? Are they all pretty cheerful that they're back to school? I'm sure they are, but I just kind of I wish Brandon was here so we could give us that input, but maybe somebody could add that.
Mrs. Morgan, you want to address that?
Sure. I've talked to several students. They're very excited to be back to school. It's been fun to have kids who, in some cases, have been off virtually since March, back in the building for the first time, in that time. Or in one case, I know in the last couple of days, I've met several freshmen who, never really made that. I mean, they started as high school students, but were never in the high school building because they were virtually. So here in January is the first time that they're here as, starting in the building as high school students and acclimating to what that feels like. So the temperature and the vibe around here is good. The kids are glad to be back with their friends. I think teenagers are social creatures by nature, so they're more than excited to be here and complying with the policies and the protocols that we have in place, realizing that that's important to keep everybody safe.
Good. Is everybody wearing their masks and everybody complying pretty good with all the safety regulations as well as you can tell, Ms. Morgan?
Yeah, as well as I can tell. We continue to work with the mask thing. There's always concerns I know that have been raised with that as far as the keeping them up over the nose and that type of thing, but we just address those as they come along.
Good. Thank you. I wanted to hear something from the school, and I'm sure we'll all question Brendan heavily next month, so warn him.
Go ahead, Alicia.
Actually, she answered my question. Or
okay.
Chuck asked the same question I was going to ask, so thanks.
So I'd like to also thank Mrs. Morgan and Mr. Kitchen and Chris. I see she's still on with us. Thank you so much for your commitment to our students and the district and all that you do. And I just want to share my, I won't show a picture because I don't have my niece's permission, but my 4-year-old great nephew today, he was given a choice when he went to preschool to be a superhero, and he chose to be a teacher. It's so cute. He has a cape and everything. Thanks to all of our staff.
That's cool.
All right. With that, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Mike and Chuck, any comments or questions? We're going to do this the old-fashioned way. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you so much to everybody, and we will talk to you next month. Have a
See
good
you
one.
soon.
Thank you.